Hello, folks. We're running 5 minutes late. Our intended guest is having major technical difficulties. She's been trying for the last half hour. It's just not working for her. So we're going to go impromptu. We're both, Andrena and I have been running the show now for quite some time, and we've actually done a lot of traveling. And I noticed that when we had our guest on, there was a lot of places that we had actually gone to. So we had a lot of things in common to actually speak about. And so it's a shame, really. So, yeah. Okay, so obviously the beauties of radio stations and doing live shows rather than pre-recorded, it's always been our philosophy to go live because the story is a lot more easier to come by and it's more refreshing, actually. So obviously my co-host is in the UK, Andrena, and it's obviously a good evening here in Australia, and it's a good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, and welcome to anyone and everyone that's listening to Dreaming the New Dream. As Jeff said, excuse me, unfortunately our guest had mega problems trying to get online down in Cornwall. So so it's just Jeff and I. We're going to do a chit chat. So first of all, I'd like to say that I'm really thankful that I've been given the opportunity to do Dreaming the New Dream. And I've looking back on the flyers as I do a flyer for each person, I've been amazed at how many people over the weeks. I'm not sure what date I started, but looking back, I've had the opportunity to talk with and interview some amazing people with amazing stories to share, amazing wisdom, out there walking their talk and dreaming the new dream. So I just want to say thank you for giving me that opportunity because I've really enjoyed it. And this is the first technical hitch we've had. So I don't think we've done too bad as far as I'm concerned in all the shows. This is the first one. So, yeah.
There you go. That's how we started the show. I think it was back in August last year. So let's see what we've got. So first of all, the original lady was Julia Choi, and she came from, mother was German and her dad was Malaysian Chinese, and she was the one that was instrumental. And so, Jeff, can we do a show? And of course, as a result, we came aboard with the concept of dreaming the new dream, because we were looking at life and realizing that, as I said to Julia, excuse me, in Germany, did you have Monopoly? Oh, yeah, we had Monopoly. I said, oh, right, okay. Now, you know, in the game of Monopoly, obviously, you throw the dice and whoever's got the biggest numbers gets the bank. And, of course, the money's already printed. So if the money's already printed, the next question is you step up to the game. And, of course, your job is to accumulate. And, you know, who wants to end up on Old Kent Road? But then, anyway, so whilst you go around and you might end up on the community card and you might get the get out of jail card, or you then start acquiring property, get the street, get the houses, get the hotels, you know the game, get a superannuation through utilities or the railway stations. But then you might go broke. And shortly afterwards, you leave the game, you go outside and you might kick a ball around, or, you know, whatever takes your fancy. And then before you know it, there's a few others have left the game. So dreaming the new dream is about the fact, okay, we've been on this cycle called accumulation and capitalism, and we're playing this game. You go to school, get a good education, get a good job, find a partner, get a house, have kids, have to see the kids get married, boom, boom, see you later, pop the clogs. Not much of a life, is it? So dreaming the new dream is about looking for passion, you know, and of course, passion is something that's, we've all been gone this God-given right of passion, you know, like, what is it? Is it ornithology, going out there to study birds and then joining with photography and taking photos of birds? You know, is it going out there and catching a wave and surfing away and all of a sudden dolphins turn up? You know, or look, it might be Skittles over there in the UK at your local pub. I mean, passion is about whatever brings delight to your soul and makes your heart sing. It's very important. So, and then some people might just prefer to look at history. I mean, I wasn't one for history. I never liked history, but entering as you get older, and then you decide, oh, I wouldn't mind checking out the Acropolis, so I might want to see the pyramids, or you want to go and see the Grand Canyon. I mean, these are all things that have been thrown in our face when we grew up looking at Life magazine, and then later on TV came along and they showed you these events and places and say you feel like traveling and meet those places. But to be able to walk in someone's shoes, that takes a lot, So on this planet, you have people who've come in different faiths, and they've been educated to that particular faith, and whether it's Catholicism or Hindu or Sufis. The question at the end of the day is, at the end of the day, we're all human, and we're all in the classroom. It just happens that our planet is a school, and we all march into a different beat. And until such time as we walk in that person's moccasins, then we start to become more aware of who we really are. And it's like the coin. I mean, there's three sides to the coin, isn't there? There's heads and tails. So I'm down here in the southern hemisphere. You're in the northern hemisphere. So you're seeing heads, I'm seeing tails. But until I turn that coin around and I get to see your side and you get to see my side, then we flip the coin on its side, and then we see that leading edge, and there's the truth. So it's very important for us to bring that out. So hence the show, Dreaming the New Dream. And of course, Andrena and I both have an affinity with dolphins and whales. So the original logo we had was a dream catcher, and so catching dreams and dreaming a new dream. But for most people who are out there, dolphins, whales, it could be birds, it could be dogs and cats. We just chose to go with these colors because it felt to us that water was such an emotional connection, and emotions is really heartfelt, until such time as, you meet this lady we had on the show some time ago, Janet Coke, and she had the horses.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Janet.
Wales.
And so, she actually mentioned, when she's talking to people who come and see the horses, they all come from their headspace. Oh, and then when she said, well, how does it feel? And when you go into that feeling, it seems like your heart opens up, and you become a new human. So, Andrena, that's what we've got the show for. It's to bring people who've got different passions and show people that, you don't have to play Monopoly. There's other ways of looking at life. And so for those people who've chosen to step out of life and go off the grid, or, become traveling Wilburys, I salute you. It's fantastic. So, we're told to go and sign the tax form number, so in capital letters. So we pay a tax, and then, of course, we're expected to live to 60, 65, so to speak, and then we retire. And what are we retiring on? It's just and then before you know it, so many people cop the clogs because they haven't got a passion, they haven't got a dream, because of being providers who've had to get up and go to work and come back. And sometimes you guys in the UK, you're going to work in the dark and come home in the dark. So, but is that life? Is that what life's all about? So you can understand now why our show, Dreaming the New Dreams, is about getting people from all around the world. And obviously, you might have a passion, but when it comes to technology, and we are learning the balance of, what comes inside ourselves, and we're using the technology that's been manifested in the Western world and using it to be able to do what we're doing tonight, which is, you're in the UK and I'm in Australia, and we're broadcasting, we're going live on radio, but we're also going live on Facebook and YouTube. So, you've got to bring that balance, and sometimes people don't have that understanding of technology, as we've found out tonight, so, or today, your time. So what do you do? So hence we do what we're doing now. We go on the fly, we share. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
We didn't have a backup plan, did we, as such? But we thought maybe, just a general chit chat, because we both got the same passions, making a difference, helping people and giving people opportunities, whether it's just sitting in a cafe chatting or being on the broadcast. So if anybody knows of anybody else, I've got quite a few speakers lined up, and a couple of people have approached me that they'd like to come on the show. So it's always nice to have individuality. So if anybody knows of anybody that's doing something and it's really their passion and they'd like to share, we'd be more than happy. So just get in touch on Facebook or Messenger, send a request, and we see what we can do to put you on the show. But if anybody wants to go back and look at any of the shows, you can go on Dream in the New Dream page. And when you scan down, it's got all the videos. Gosh, there's so many videos on there. But and I can't say I've got a favourite out of all of them, because they all come with different capabilities, and some people I think, oh wow, that's amazing, and then somebody else think, oh wow, it's just I sit here going, oh wow. Julia. Now I've done beautiful workshops with Julia when I was in where was I, on the Byron Gold Coast? I forgot where I've been, here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, so we're open to having people come on and share their passion and share their gifts, and Val. And yeah, no, I did ask Francis.
Andrea's found her technology. She's here.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. Just hang on. I'll bring her on.
Welcome. Welcome.
I don't know where I've been. I've been everywhere trying to get in, and then my computer finally let me in. So.
Oh, well, that's good. Welcome to Dream in the New Dream, and we have the lovely Andrea Foulkes.
Yeah, I think it's like very strange here. I'm in Cornwall, so hold on. Now it's flashing up some other things. So we're here anyway.
Oh, well, that's a start. So we're just getting in a flow of a chit chat and offering people the chance that if they're creating their passion and they want to come on the show, to get in touch. So anyway, here you are.
Yeah, maybe we do overcoming adversity and blockages and things, because I do think sometimes things try and stop you, and it's you've got to go through that. And I think, like everybody, it's like trying to go through obstacles put in our way. And sometimes, like I was listening before to the lovely Michael Land that you were interviewing, and it's the realms of the unseen and the other dimensions sometimes trying to stop things. And we've got to push through all that. And because like, I'm sure you can feel energies, I can feel energies sometimes trying to stop stuff. And you've got to push through all that, especially I think when we want to deal with this kind of work. There's often blockages put in the way, and going through that and just still persevering, because I think it's so easy to give up for people, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I know that Carol and I were in Bradford-on-Avon, and we'd gone to a pub. I think it was about a 16th, 17th century pub. I can't remember now. It was all set up. I'd gone the day before. I tried everything out. That day, we could not get on. We couldn't use our phones. We were so blocked, and we knew it and felt it. It was so yeah. Anyway, you're here now. So
I thought I'll explain why it is, because it is those energies that we're dealing with. So do you want me to explain what I do? Or
So because you're just, I've known you over the years, and we've often bumped into each other in Glastonbury and what have you, and friends for supper. So because you're just on the outskirts of Glastonbury, aren't you? Because I know you can see the tour from the bottom of your garden.
Yeah, I can see the tour from my garden in Glastonbury, and I'm not in Glastonbury at the moment. I'm in Cornwall, so I'm at my little chalet called Sea Angel in Cornwall, which is actually a good story in itself for people. But first of all, explain that I do past life regression, inner child healing, ancestral timeline healing, spirit releasement, and I speak light language. And I've done that for 22 years since I had my awakening when I lived in London. And when I was in London, I was meditating back in 2007, having never been to Cornwall, had no idea where it was. I'd heard people talk about it. And in my vision came this little white chalet with baby blue painted windows. And the message I got was, if you Google it, you'll find it. So it took me 3 days, and it was for sale. So I bought it just off my meditation. And I think that the energies here, and when Michael Lamb was talking about Stargate portals on the planet and all those things. This ties in because I believe that this is one of the cities of light in Cornwall where my chalet is, and over across the bay was where they had the G7 summit last year.
Oh, yeah.
So all kinds of energies are here. So when we follow our intuition on buying a property, we can't be wrong, even though our ego mind can go, that makes no sense. Why am I doing this? But on a higher level, everything always makes sense.
Yeah. So I'd like to know about your awakening. So where were you born? Let's start at the beginning.
I was born in Stoke-on-Trent up north, but I was brought up living in Cheshire. And then I went to school there. I was a model for probably nearly 13, 14 years. I did that full time, all, abroad and in the UK. And then I came to London working, and then it was around about 2000, 2001 when I had my awakening. I wasn't into any of this. If somebody mentioned astrology, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was interested in astrology, but really on a basic level, I didn't know anything else. And then a lady went to my gym. She was saying she was going to the College of Psychic Studies in London. And I said, oh, that sounds fun to do an astrology course. And she kept almost pestering me every week saying, have you gone? I'm like, no. And almost a year went by when I finally went to the College of Psychic Studies, and I was going to sign up for an astrology course, and they said they're fully booked. So I actually signed up to go on whatever they had available for that weekend, which was a psychometry course, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners know is like holding jewelry on an inanimate object and picking up information about people from those. So they were great. They knew all about me. I didn't know these people in the room. We all passed our jewelry around, and I picked up information about them. And they said it was accurate. Their information was accurate about me. And then from that, I signed up to a development course. But the teacher wasn't as lovely as the teacher from that day workshop. But then a friend of mine who was a model said he'd been for a psychic reading somewhere. So I signed up to going for the psychic reading with the same man. And he said, this is going to be your path, this is what you're going to be doing. And I was like, I don't think so. And very quickly it did become my life. And all this stuff just from going to a development course, not the one at the College of Psychic Studies. This mystical man that I went to see for the reading had a development course that he arranged every week, and I sat with these people, and from being really not particularly good at school, daydreaming out the window, not paying attention, all of a sudden I was attentive, interested, and almost like top of the class at the School of Hogwarts. And that was kind of what happened. And it was, we were doing development stuff, and it was, other people would say things like, oh, I think you were lovely in your childhood, or I see the color orange. But I was really tuning in, getting really specific information, like, you lived with your granddad, you lived on this address in your childhood. It was really accurate. And I wasn't trying. That was the thing, like school, you've got to try. This was not trying. This was just like naturally coming to me. Brilliant. And so I developed really quickly. I used to work on QVC in the UK, which was good because I would go and get press discount for things, and I'd have crystals in my pocket and show people things. And at the time, there was a holistic health company that had a flagship store in London called Aveda. And that was privately owned then by Hurst Reckelbecker. And they invited me to give talks in their stores. So I was giving lots of talks in their stores. And then they said, do you want to put flyers to, for clients? And it didn't dawn on me to do that, but they were so kind and helpful. And then I started to see people's past lives, just naturally seeing people's past lives. But I couldn't work out what the benefit to that would be, me just saying blah, 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 because I wasn't that evolved back then. And so I went then, very quickly did end up on TV talking about being psychic. because I ended up being mugged and strangled. So I ended up talking about being psychic. Then a year later, I was back on this Kilroy show talking about being psychic. So the whole thing was sort of like tying in together to an awakening. And then I learned past life regression from a guy who taught me hypnotherapy, past life regression, and inner child healing. And then all these amazing things were happening. I was levitating off my bed. I was almost doing like what we would now call hand light language, but I didn't know what it was then. It was just like my hand wafting. So I was doing these hand waftings over myself, and everything they were telling me, all these colors, all those energies were coming in. I was doing channelings. Everything that they were telling me would literally come true the next day. So everything was lining up, and it was like I was in my own little Celestine prophecy. And they told me not to work for 3 months, and I trusted it. And I was living in a really expensive place, so I was like, how am I going to pay the rent if I'm not going to work for 3 months? But they were like, trust, everything will be provided for. And then my energy blew the electrics in the house. And then when the owner of the flat had to come and the electricity board came to check this electric, they said, this is substandard. You shouldn't even be renting the flat to someone with this kind of electric. So I got rent free for 3 months, which was the 3 months they told me not to work. So everything was just lining up to facilitate me. And then what they were saying, if people understand what a soapbox is, it's like an old-fashioned metaphor for speaking your truth on top of a platform. So I was being given this message: you need to stand on a soapbox for what you believe in and speak your truth as you know it to be. And every night they were doing these healing work, and I would write these channelings, and they were beyond my level of comprehension. Me as Andrea didn't understand these channelings. And at the time, they were giving me like mathematical equations for the elixir of life, telling me how the cosmos and the universe worked. But as me, I didn't have the intelligence to understand the information that I was being given. I didn't know who these beings were telling me this. But I was starting to feel like everything was love. And for months, I just lived in this high state of everything being love. And I was starting to lose physical density, like my body was losing physical density, didn't have any physicality. It was just almost just like light beaming. And then after I ended up on this TV show, lots of people who saw me were trying to connect with that energy, some not so benevolent people. I managed to avoid them, which was a whole story in itself. But the other stuff that I was being given was at the very end days of working on QVC. I almost could sit there just beaming this light, and there's people who've seen me since that time said, I knew you were doing something, that you looked like you were doing something else, but I knew you were just shining this energy at the time. And that energy lasted at that high level for quite a long time, and then it changed, and obviously more life experiences came in, and challenges come to you, and it didn't stay at that high level, but it's gone back into to that level sometimes. And then they were saying, in this big soapbox that you're going to stand on, you've got to speak your truth. And I was being told, you're going to do something big, so just trust to that. And I was just totally trusting. And after learning how to do regression, I had all these private clients. And then very quickly one day, a friend just said to me, do you want to go on This Morning and regress the host of the show, which This Morning is like Good Morning America. And in America, it's like our main morning TV show in the UK. And I said yes, and we filmed Philip Schofield and Fern being regressed, and then we aired it the beginning of January 2004. And then I went on the set, we aired this thing, and they just said, can you come back every week till we make your own show?
Yeah, fantastic.
That was it, really. And then I did 2 series of my own show called Have I Been Here Before? But I liked This Morning better, because with This Morning I could regress members of the public, and which I like doing, the members of the public and celebrities. But with the members of the public, I was allowed to focus more on the healing aspects of past life regression, or although they wouldn't let me show inner child healing, but they did twice let me talk about spirit releasement, which
really?
was for terrestrial TV to touch on spirit releasement. And then I would be getting like 1,000 people a day emailing, asking about, oh my God, thank God you've talked about this. It was making the spiritual world by putting it on terrestrial TV. It wasn't in a closet. It was, mainstream every week for quite a long period of time, and allowed people in the UK, to start talking about their own spiritual experiences and validating, that they may be having experiences of seeing past lives naturally. So that was 2004 to 2007. I did these shows. And then in 2013, I was on a BBC show called The Big Question. And I'd already been a year earlier. And a year earlier, it was like living the witch trials of Salem. As it happened, I could experience it was happening. So I went back on a year later when they invited me to just check that I'd cleared this, witch trials of Salem thing. And what actually happened then was, I just out of my mouth came out about the Illuminati, came about, sorry, even talking about it is losing my voice.
Yeah.
I talked about the Illuminati. I talked about the food and drug industry, because the subject was about should we have a tax on sugar. So I just went off into this blah, 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 blah. And then I started going on about it being a holographic universe, and these people all just looked at me horrified, like, what is she saying? Why is she saying these things? And I just felt so liberated, like, oh, I've done what I came to do. And I felt good, and I still felt good afterwards, even though I never worked on TV after that. I never worked on TV. I was never interviewed on a radio show, and I was never invited to mainstream press anymore, as in print press. That was it.
Really? No surprise.
So it shows you how in the background these things are going on. Oh, it's interesting you've thrown up a picture of Trump. I've got a really lovely story about Trump that I've never told anybody.
Oh, please share.
You will love this story. So just before he got elected, I was having these dreams with Trumpykins, okay? So they were quite benevolent dreams. They were quite positive, although I did see him almost dressed in Freemasonry outfit. But then one time he was being hit and his nose was bleeding. So I had all these dreams about him. And then I was one day looking on a website called Secret Flying, and I used to spend a lot of time going back to Sedona and to Hawaii, to the Big Island. And so this flight was to Maui, and I thought, I've never been to Maui, I'll go to Maui. But it was a really weird one, because I had to go via Inverness in Scotland. It was a strange flight from Inverness, which allowed me to go to Findhorn, if anyone knows what Findhorn is. And I'd always wanted to go to Findhorn, and I was like, now I'm going to Findhorn via Inverness and also via Maui. So I get this flight to Maui. I stay at this retreat center. On the last day of being there, I'm talking with the interns about my dreams with Trumpykins, and they were validating, saying they'd had similar dreams about Trumpykins. And this other woman arrived with her husband, and she was looking at me, and she seemed really twinkly herself, and she came over and she's like, can I have a chat with you about what you're talking about? So we have this chat. I go off to the yoga studio. Husband sat there tapping away on a computer, and I speak light language, and she says, maybe I speak light language. So she speaks light language as well, although she's never spoken light language before. And then I told her about my dreams, and she said, maybe you can share your dreams and what you experienced with my husband, who's the Prime Minister of Romania. So, this was the Prime Minister of Romania and his wife. So, and recently, in the last few months, the only reason I'm sharing this story, because in the last few months, everyone who speaks in exopolitics have been talking about these Stargate portals in Romania. So I thought, how bizarre that I've had this connection at this really high vibrational portal in Maui, because there's like a pyramid in the sea in Maui where I was with these people, and we were all singing language. So I think that's just a wonderful story to show you that if you trust where you're meant to be, you know, you're going there with the most innocent of intentions and with good intentions for yourself and humanity. But if you're meant to cross paths, and I've got all kinds of stories like that over the years, that if you're meant to cross paths with these people, you will. You know, and all I can say, they're not the president anymore. But at the time when I had that experience, they had been, because I don't think in Romania they last as long as they do in the UK. To be you know, I don't think your length of whatever it is, what's it called, presidency, lasts that long over there. But what it showed me was there were really beautiful people who were really, you know, very spiritually aligned with beautiful intention for humanity in those positions.
Yeah.
And not everybody is bad that high up in you know the world. They're not all bad. There are good people seeping through behind the scenes to facilitate good things for humanity.
Well, I will ask you at some point, will you do some light language? I just love light language. It's just
the only thing is there is a bit of feedback on this. I don't know if Jeff can tell. Can you tell us some feedback? Because if I do a really loud light language, it'll probably go a further feedback. I don't know if it's my sound that I need to turn down or something. Or is it stable?
I can turn you down. That's not a problem.
Yeah, just 1 decibel or something, because sometimes it will reverb on it. So
no, I've got you sorted. You're all sorted now. I've got you sorted.
Okay. Shall I explain what light language is?
No, go for it.
From my perception of what I believe light language is, and everybody believes it's something different. I spoke little languages as a child to myself, but I didn't really question what those were, and I certainly didn't know any other children who spoke little languages to themselves, but I just did them. It wasn't what it became now in how I speak languages. There are people who speak languages which is, I believe, the tongues of our souls. So they're back to Lemuria and they're back to ancient star systems. There are lots of different languages. So if you don't resonate with mine or you don't resonate with some others, there's a reason. Maybe it's not for your soul. That language is not resonating for your soul. It's a different language. So be very discerning. You don't have to accept all of them just because you think someone speaks light language. In fact, I had a funny story the other day. I was at the Chalice Well in Glastonbury, and I was lighting a candle for some. I'd had a lot of people pass over in February this year. 6 people I knew passed over, and it was one of their funerals. And I saw someone I vaguely know there, and I said to him, "Oh, could you just film this or take a photo for me, lighting a candle at the Chalice Well for these people who've passed over, so I can send it to their family to say, because I couldn't go to the funeral, I was lighting this candle, so that it would be nice for them." And I said, and then I'm going to sing some light language. He went, "If you're going to sing light language, you've got to go." And he gave me my phone and he was gone. And so I thought, oh my God, that's so funny that, you know, at least he knew he wasn't open to light language and he went.
Well, he made it perfectly clear, eh? You freaked him out.
You can. That's a beautiful picture of the Chalice Well in Glastonbury with the Vesica Pisces on the lid, and you know, and Andrena and I love going to the Chalice Well. So yeah, so talk back to the light language. So you've got all these sophophonic frequencies. So from my perception of my understanding of light languages, it's opening dormant DNA codes that have been shut down in for a lot of people, it's in your head. Or for some people, they feel it in their heart, or they just feel emotions come up, or they feel like their body's vibrating. But we have had our DNA shut down, and sound is everything. And I know you do sound healing as well, and Andrena. And sound healing is opening the codes. It can open, you know, if you have the correct people together at a Stargate portal on the planet, and they have the ability to sing or create those octaves, you can open dimensions and portals to other realities. And that's why I was so enjoying that conversation that you'd had. I thought it was just before me with Michael Lamb, but it was so great what he was saying about the Stargate portals and everything. And then if your body is like a living portal in itself, so it can do amazing things for you as a toroidal energy field portal. And then when you align to the Stargate portals on the planet, or where there's sacred zones or sites, at the right time of the solstice or the sun hitting the stone and your sound, you open the realities and dimensions up. Because it isn't, you know, they want us to be in 3D, but we're more than 3D. You know, we're opening up to that. Those stones are actually man-made stones, but
they do look very real.
Portland Bill near Weymouth in the UK,
right.
which is really interesting because I think they have 15 Masonic lodges in Portland back in the day where the Phoenicians came. So Portland was a really powerful point, and also a lot like St. Paul's Cathedral was made from the stones from Portland. So it's a very powerful point there. And a lot of people there have a certain look about them. You can see the people who are multi-generational who lived in Portland. They're all kind of blonde, blue-eyed. The local inhabitants of Portlandville, around there. So, shall I sing a light language now? Does that?
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
If we just close our eyes and just take a deep breath and just let this sound ripple through your body, and I'll just be quiet for a few seconds at the end. It'll be about a minute transmission, but just bringing in, connecting with whoever's going to watch this in the past, present, future, in all timelines of existence for that collective soul energy of people. So Elara makuya, satara makiana kurumakuya, asatara mutaya, yana kurumakuya, urmakisa para makiana. Isara takamakuya, uruma kayana kurumakuya, Elara takamakuya, urumakiana kurusakaya, Itera makuya, urmakuya, karanta kamakuya, Usara takamakuya, urmakiana kukuya, urmakuya, Isara takamakuya. How is that?
Oh, magic. You know, it goes down through me and like tingling and vibrating, and I just love it. It's, you know, it's just amazing. Yeah, love it. I was huge. Sorry.
I had to work. I mean, I think people don't realize to be able to speak codes, you've got to, like when I was younger and I lived in London, I got mugged and strangled. So they tried to take some octaves out of my throat. I think that was why, because when they read the timelines, they can see who you are, what you're going to do, you know, what your potential is. So if they can try and stop you from doing what you came here to do. Yeah. So I ended up, after being mugged and strangled, I ended up on thyroxine for an underactive thyroid, and I was on that for 16 years. And then about 5 years ago, I decided to take myself off it. But like a lot of things, when you take yourself off it, terror, fear comes over you, because you think, oh my God, I never want to go through those experiences again. And so you have to go inside yourself, heal all the trauma of that, whether it's past life. You know, a lot of us have had trauma done to our throat from past lives, or we've been, you know, I know it's a bit formulaic by saying we've been witches or priestesses, but, you know, a lot of women who are doing mystical stuff now have been. And, you know, they've either been strangled, they've been drowned, you know, their voices have been silenced. And this, you know, it isn't a male form of patriarchy. The patriarchy can come through women as well. It's not the, you know, the divine masculine is a higher vibration that supports, you know, the evolution of humanity, whereas this old patriarchal, old energy, which is what we're clearing from the planet now more intensely the last 2 years, that's what's tried to stop our voices, you know, from being heard, to shut you down and stop you from speaking your truth. And, you know, most of humanity have had this spell cast upon them to almost find it so hard to speak the truth. You know, it's that they're silenced into not speaking their truth, or fearful that someone's going to attack them. So we're clearing all that that's coming up for humanity, to be able to speak from our hearts again, not from our wounded, you know, heart, but from the divine heart of ourselves.
Definitely. And especially with the last couple of years, you know, mega, where everybody's been shut down and you know, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's a amazing, a massive amount of clearing that's going on still, isn't it?
Yeah, you know? And I think a lot of people will be leaving. I think there's been more people on the planet than perhaps were ever going to be here, and they just came for that end of the cycle, end of the 26,000 year cycle, to be here for this transition. It's like I said, I've never seen so many people leaving, you know, and they were people who had taken the jibby jab, and there were people who hadn't taken the jibby jab leaving. So it is a mixture. And through asking in client sessions, you know, who is going to make it now, and what they were saying, which is these luminescent beings, clients often go to this place between lives when I take them to this place between lives, and they describe these luminescent beings, and without them realizing it, they all describe them looking very similar. These beings, they're luminescent, and these beings were saying that it's not as you think it is. Everybody who's going to stay now is for a much higher reason. They're staying. Not going to be taken out necessarily because they did the ding ding. Some of those people will get very ill in the next few years, and some people will miraculously seem to have survived it and not. And they said it's on a much higher soul level than we could even put into our human minds of comprehension. And I think, you know, when I had my awakening, and I was talking about that with you earlier, I was working with the Pleiadians, and at the time, all these people came into my life to help me. And I read Barbara Messiniak's book, Bringers of the Dawn, and that really helped me. And years later, I met Barbara twice in Sedona, and had some really amazing experiences with her. And so all this star being lineage within us is awakening. It's not necessarily like they're going to come. It's like we're waking up to who we were before they shut our DNA codes down. So we may have had, you know, in my own experience, I believe I've had expressions of time in Pleiadian energies, and then in Sirius B energies, and then Andromedan, and maybe a tiny bit of time in Venusian energies. And then when I was listening to those light languages at the end, the clicky sound is more to do with the Arcturian energy. So it's more, the clicky sounds are very Arcturian to me. And I know there are people who they say they can teach people to speak light language. I don't believe you need to do that. I think you just need to allow people to clear. A lot of what I'm working with now with people is healing their inner child from this lifetime. You know, the big thing now is healing from the womb to present day, healing the trauma, reclaiming the fragments of our soul that has been very traumatic to us. Hold on, something's coming up on my computer, just moving it out the way. You know, clearing that inner child, the womb trauma. And often I get clients saying, oh, but I've healed my inner child. I'm like, okay, well, that's great if you've healed it, but we'll see what comes up. And then they're like, I never thought there was all that yet to come up. Because I think people, well, when I was doing the past life regression on TV, I think people were surprised how open people were to doing past life regression, even though they might not necessarily have been, quote, spiritual people. They could see the past life as almost like not them. It wasn't personal. I mean, to me, it's deeply personal. It's you, it's your soul, it's everything you've ever been. But from their perspective, they could almost detach from it. Whereas when you start talking about inner child, the average person isn't going to come to see you to do inner child healing. No. They're going to come on the premise that they want to see a past life, and then they might get blocked going into their past life, and they're usually blocked because they either have some inner child stuff to work on, or they have an entity attached who's blocking things. Or sometimes if they're really, really stuck, it's because, but most of those people who are narcissistic wouldn't reach out for therapy. You know, they're not going to, they'd have to get almost tricked and duped into it. And mostly people who can't do regression have really controlling personalities, or they have entities attached, or they have a really deeply wounded inner child that they're terrified about healing. And also you have to be very gentle with people, because even though as an intuitive reading the emotional Akashic records, so I'm very specific in saying I read the emotional Akashic records. So that's identifying the origin of the emotional trauma and taking you back to the origin of the emotional trauma, or telling you what I get, and then you clearing it in your body. I'm not clearing it for you. I'll guide you into clearing it out of your emotional Akashic records so that you can be free of it. But it is a journey for people, and people are almost so addicted to their trauma that they don't understand.
It's like a roll call.
Yeah, they're like, well, I mean, I've lived with it for so long, surely it can't be that bad. And it's like, yeah, but who could you be without this?
Exactly,
you know?
Yeah.
And you know, because my biggest passion is helping people heal by not needing pharmaceutical drugs and not needing operations necessarily. But not everybody sees that as a bonus. You know, a lot of people don't see there's any benefit to that. You know, they'd rather have the operation and take the drugs, whereas I would rather heal myself, like I heal myself of my broken ankle.
Yeah. Did you want to share about your ankle? Because that was an amazing journey, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was weird. It was, I live, like you said, I live in Glastonbury. I also live near where the festival site is, but not near enough to get tickets to go, but near enough to hear the bass. Doof, doof. So it was 3 minutes before the main stage on the Saturday. I had some new flat frumpy shoes, really flat on, and I just stepped outside off a step like that, and I don't even think I fell. Something went, and I just fell to the floor. My ankle twisted all the way round, and I broke it. And I somehow got myself from outside inside. I managed to put my ankle on a paint pot and twist it back into place because there was no pain. Because when you're in shock, there's no pain. And I can remember just sitting there wiggling it about, but I was in shock, and I thought I do need to call an ambulance. I know I've broken it. So I called an ambulance, waited 8 hours for this ambulance to come. then I waited another few hours once I got to the hospital, and then they put this back slab thing on, and then you go back a few days later, and they were like, "No, you're going to need surgery." I was like, "No," and they went, "Yeah, you're going to need pins and plates." I was like, "I don't think that's going to work for me." I said. And they were like, "What?" And I think the surgeon was embarrassed because he had a whole room full of students with him. And I was just like, with the greatest love and respect and honour for the work you've done, I said, I must honour the work I've done for 20 years. So can you just put a plaster cast on and squash it together and I'll be going? And I was lucky that the guy who did the plaster cast was an Egyptian doctor. And I think he was more old school, and I think he knew that I could probably be okay. But this surgeon guy was just so angry. He was like an angry dragon. You know, and they tried to really push me. Like they were saying, sign these forms. I said, but why? I'm not going to do this surgery. And they were like, well, you might change your mind. I went, no, I won't. And so I managed to get my mind into the quantum field because they said it was non-union, so it wasn't like it was even lined up. So, but I never took any painkillers or anything, and I was in a high state of joy for weeks with this broken ankle until they took the plaster cast off and they put a fiberglass cast on, and then the fires of hell happened, and I just kept getting flashbacks to 3 past lives. One, which I think was the cause of this in the beginning. I'd been an African woman in a past life with 1 leg. And when I triggered that memory through someone giving me a deep tissue massage years ago, the muscles in my buttocks stopped firing. I went to see a chiropractor and he said the muscles have stopped firing in your hip area. So I had to tell my mind that I wasn't an African woman with 1 leg anymore. You know, I've got 2 legs and they both need to walk. But that had obviously triggered a weakness in the left side by the memory coming up, but not completely clearing it. And then while I had this fiberglass cast on, a memory came up of being a nurse on a battlefield and me having post-traumatic stress and just the terror of seeing all these men with, you know, limbs all blown off, and so I had to clear that. And then I had another flashback because when they'd wrapped my ankle, they twisted the lining so it was really tight, and that triggered a past life memory of my ankle being stuck in a bear trap in another lifetime. So I had to clear this. So I cleared all these past lives. I did think twice while I was laying there with this broken ankle taking. It never dawned on me to take any painkillers, and it wasn't painful till this other plaster cast came on. But I did surrender into dying twice. I did think I would die, and the lady and it brought up all kinds of other emotions, like you live on your own. I had to find somebody to come and help me every day because I literally couldn't survive without somebody coming to help me. And then you notice your vulnerability of living on your own. Like if I couldn't have hired somebody to come, I would have died. You know, it was that bad. And so I surrendered into dying twice. And even the lady who looked after me a few months in, she did say, oh, I did wonder if you'd be here the next day when I came back. You did look like you weren't going to make it. And I said, I really didn't think I was going to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
and then that's the death and rebirth that we go through. You know, we all have to go through the petty death, what they say in French, isn't it? Is un petit death. You don't die, and I think this is the fear that people have about doing their inner work, that they think that they'd rather die than face their inner self. You know, and I tell a story that is quite shocking about a client that I had come, because in the UK there's a 1939 Cancer Act that stops us from talking about healing cancer alternatively. But I had a client come, he said he had cancer in a forearm here. And he said, I get that you can heal yourself. I've seen other people heal themselves with cancer. I said, great, because, you know, you've got to be in that mindset. Otherwise, I wouldn't work with you, because I've been doing this long enough to know that I can't heal anybody of cancer. They're going to heal themselves. And so I start working with him. I realize he's got an issue with male authority figures, even though he's a very successful banker in his 40s. And he's had this cancer in his forearm removed once before. And so as we start to go into the past lives of why has the cancer manifested here? Why is it not here? Why is it here? And it's manifested where there's a weakened cell memory. So on in a past life, he'd been on a slave ship, rowing a slave ship, and they've been whipping him repeatedly. So it had gone where there was a weakened cell memory from the whipping on the slave ship. And then he also had an entity attached, which was a strict school teacher, and she had a ruler, and she was hitting him on his wrist with a ruler. So that was why the cancer had manifested there. So I did as best I could in the session, and I gave him extra time. And as he was leaving, he turned to me through the door and he said, you know, and this is a guy in his 40s, he went, do you know, my mother's not noticed how serious this is? And I thought, ooh, you know, he wants mummy's attention, and he doesn't want to heal this till mummy pays him some attention, because the wounded inner child wants mummy's attention. And so when I said, well, you know, and I'd given him all this info saying, when are you going to see the surgeon? He was like, in a week's time. I said, well, you need to come back for another session before then. And I thought, we need to get to the bottom of this inner child stuff. Anyway, he cancelled the session, even though I printed off all this stuff from probably Vernon Coleman and what doctors tell you about, you know, cancer surgery. Anyway, I thought, let him go, just let it go, but I couldn't. So I sent him an email saying, you know, it's been a few weeks now. What happened? Did you see the surgeon? You might not have liked me, but you were really good at going inside yourself. Maybe you don't like my personality or whatever, but please go and see someone else who could help you to do this. And he said, no, I got what you said. I read it. I appreciate it, but I trust my surgeon. I thought, oh, this is not going to be good. And I said, oh, he said, but he couldn't operate. And I said, oh, so if you trust your surgeon and he can't operate, then I don't understand. And he said, well, I'm going to have my arm amputated on Saturday.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh my God, this guy, rather than face his inner child, would rather chop his arm. So I thought, I'm not leaving it there. So
you would.
I don't care if this guy hates me for the rest of his life. If I trigger a healing in him and it saves his arm, it doesn't matter. So I email back, do you think mummy will be nice to a little boy with one arm? In the hope that it might trigger him. Yeah. I never heard from him again. And I actually was in Cornwall at the time. And I think I cried for 3 hours on the beach for him, thinking, oh my God, he's going to cut his arm off. I can't believe it. But I had to learn the lesson, especially as healing empaths and sensitives, you know, to detach, to you know, it's so hard because you think, oh my God, you know, you're going to cut your arm off. And then I had another lady once, she was only 23, which was really, really sad. She had leukemia, and, you know, she was dying of leukemia. It was really bad. And we got to the point where we saw what had manifested in the soul level. It was this hatred of a man who'd incarnated as her brother in this lifetime, and she really hated him. And I said, if you don't forgive him and forgive this past life, you're going to die of leukemia. She went, I know, I'd rather die. I'm not forgiving him. You know, so you can't always get people to heal, but at least they will know why they're leaving on a soul level.
Yeah.
You know, and it's shocking. You think, well, gosh, it's so simple. Surely forgive, stay, you know, but it's not always like that for everyone. And we see it from that perspective, but maybe from a much higher soul perspective, there's more to be learned by that experience of actually living.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I always think everybody on some level, on some way, in some sort of thing, we're all committing suicide in a way by all our choices and actions every day. Because once we start to learn that we could potentially stay in a physical body for a lot longer than we've been told, and how do we go about healing that body. And we're all, you know, things we think, things we eat, how we live our lives are all contributing to our demise without us realizing that's what we're doing. But we're programmed in that 3D matrix to accept death, to accept aging. And I always love that great book, whether you believe in Jesus or not, it doesn't matter, because this is a beautiful channel book. I think she's passed over, Claire Hartsong. She wrote a beautiful book called Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. Have you read it?
No, I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, because in it, she channels this story as if she's Anna, the grandmother of Jesus. And she says she was in the same physical body for 600 years. And she averaged out looking physically about 35. And then she got tired. She had that. I can imagine 600 years in the same body, you'd be getting tired. And I think she'd, you know, her life had got complicated because she'd had children with so many different people, and that like her grandchildren were also her children, and so it's like really weird kind of concept. But she got to the point where she'd had enough, and she just said, I don't want to be in this body anymore, and I'm going to eat certain things, and that will age my body, and I will go through the natural dying process, and that's what will happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. What was I was going to ask? Oh yeah, so when people come to you for a session, do they know what they're do like most people know what they're coming for? And when they come to say, oh, I'm stuck, I can't move on or something, then do you go into the Akashic, or you go into the past life? Where do you go with it? Where do you start?
I've got two lots of clients because I work on Skype. Well, I say Skype, but I don't look at people because that would stop me doing what I do, and it would stop them from dropping into their emotional self. So because they're, you know, a lot of them are abroad, you're using the sound frequency, but I'm not using the video, so they can just drop into their emotional self. But the ones that come to see me for in person for regression, I mean, I have all kinds of people who come. Some say, I mean, the highest client that I love is the ones who say, I've no idea who you are. I was meditating. I got given your name in a meditation, and here I am.
Yeah.
I love those ones. But the other people often think they're coming for one thing, and that's what we do deal with, the one thing they think they're coming with. But then once they go inside themselves, they realize that there were other things that they needed to sort out, and it's a journey, you know, it's a journey inside yourself. So if I'm working, which is the emotional Akashic records on Skype there or the phone, they're just telling me this is what's going on in my life now. I don't know how to clear it or get to the bottom of it. I don't know what's going on, and then I'll see what it is. It might be entities attached. It might be trauma from childhood. It's all interlinked. So in how I work, I don't believe that you can truly serve the client in the best way possible if you go, well, I only do inner child healing, I only do past life regression, I only do spirit releasement. You can't. You need to be able to do all those things at the same time for that person, because it's all interwoven. So in the past life, they'll psychologically talk about what's going on in their life now, and then I'll have intuitively tuned into what I think is going on as well. And then we'll just weave in between to clearing everything to the 0 point field. So in regression in person, you're taking them back to the origin of that and clearing it to the 0 point field. So that helps them to heal as well. And we're just clearing the past life till it's neutral. There's no negative energy. And with the inner child or the wound trauma, you're just taking people to heal the trauma in the child aspect of themselves, which is predominantly outside of themselves. So that part of them has fragmented off. It's outside of themselves. It's not in them. So we heal the story because the child needs to have its story heard, and then we release it energetically out of their body with light language and them opening up and maybe doing some sound healing in themselves, and then bring the healed aspect of themselves back to the adult version of them.
Yeah.
And then with the entities, you can't just get rid of entities. You know, a lot of people think they can, and then I've spoken to some people who say they do spirit release them, and I'm like, how do you get rid of the entities? Oh, I shout at them. I'm like, oh, that's not really helpful. You can't really shout at them. That's not going to help. You have to take the client back to the day of the emotional cohesion of the day the entity attached to them. So that might take them back into a past life, because some of these entities have been reattaching every time that soul incarnates. They hang on the astral plane, and then they feel the frequency of the being of that person and magnetically drawn to them again, until you get to the soul story between that person and this person. Sometimes they don't know them and they've just attached through a resonance of their emotional state of being, and there's a hole in the client's energy field, and they've got in through that, and over time they've worked, you know, sometimes they'll say, you know, sometimes they can have 90% control over a person.
Yeah.
So when the entity goes, that client feels like they go through a bereavement. Sorry. They go through a bereavement because they've never they go through a bereavement because they've never had their own thoughts and consciousness before. You know, to be alone in your own consciousness is scary, because they're like, it's gone. It's like this overriding voice or energy that's trying to tell them what to do is gone. You know, some of them have even told me over the years that they've struggled to get to even come to the session. You know, they've booked a session.
Yeah.
And he's telling them, don't trust her, don't go and see her. I'm going to go see her. And so they've cancelled the session, or they say, oh my God, I've had that much trouble finding your house. Like, you know, I was getting sent round in circles, but it's the entity trying to stop them.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the entity comes, you know, I speak to the entity, so I push the client's consciousness into the background, and the entity comes through and, you know, can be quite rude and nasty to me, and I'm like, oh, charming, and they go, I'm not speaking to you, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just carry on speaking to you, and then they go, oh, you think you're clever, and but usually it's just their ego defending themselves because they're frightened, and they act all rah. You know, sometimes they're really rah, you know, like rah. I've seen people literally, I mean, I probably shouldn't say this because it'll put people off, but I have seen people fall to the floor, foaming at the mouth, shaking. You know, and you are like, oh my goodness. But you know, if you stay calm, stay in your heart, you can help people. So I think the thing is, people dabble in this, but they really don't know what they're dealing with. And you know, you have to be quite grounded, I think, to be able to deal with what you're going to deal with. And also, you know, people are going back sometimes to healing very traumatic things that have happened in this lifetime that they might be in denial of or disassociated from. And in no way do you want to. You have to be very careful, especially around sexual trauma, that you don't preempt them in any way or feed them in any way. You just want to make sure that that person says, I think something happened. They might have a conscious memory or they might not. And that kind of memory is best only ever brought up in person, in regression, where you're not feeding them in any way and they're just naturally going back to that trauma. So you help them to heal it and for people. With people who have a memory of some kind of trauma, and you've worked with them a lot, you know, and they're used to being on the spiritual path for many years, when the healing comes out of some people, it's very primordial. It's literally like howling, you know. And I've talked before that, you know, when people end up sectioned in the UK, which means being put in a mental health institute, it's their healings, that their traumas coming to the surface to be healed, but they're not being given the opportunity. And I've heard lots of stories where when they're in these facilities, they start to howl because the healing's starting to come out, but they stop them from howling and medicate them.
Yeah.
And instead they need to be allowed to howl and release this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it reminds me of Ghost and Patrick Swayze. They're saying, I'm Henry VIII, I'm Henry VIII. Bro, Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, and films are great, aren't they? Because films are in some way telling the truth.
Yeah.
They want us to believe it's fiction, but it's actually the truth.
All right.
Really bad feedback, she said.
Yeah, not too sure what's going on there. Hey, I was quite surprised to see this photo on your Facebook.
Who's that? Who's that dishy young man?
Hold on, I'm just going to move my chair a little bit. I don't know. I think it's just a past life memory of being I was Lakota in quite a few lifetimes. Have you been Native American, either of you? Yeah, I don't know what tribe he is, but yeah, he's lovely, isn't he?
we don't worry about what tribe he is.
I remember as a child seeing a Native American person for the first time, and I was just like, oh, you know, but it was that past life memory. Yeah. And I've seen the past lives where I was male in a Lakota tribe and my tribes were annihilated, and you know, the grief that came out again was howling grief. You know, I'd been this male, you know, and in Native American tribes, you know, you were the elder, you're meant to be protecting these people, and I couldn't protect them. They killed them. You know. And the grief that came out was huge. And it was really funny because when I was in Sedona, I did end up at a Lakota tent and the paintings were Lakota on the tent.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I feel that's that picture there. Oh, that was another story. That's in the valley.
Big Island away. This is the Valley of the Kings.
Yeah.
Andrena and I have been
there on an ancestral trip.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Did you go to the big waterfall at the back?
No, we went swimming on the beach because I had a background in surf lifesaving, so I knew where to go and swim.
Oh, wonderful! Well, in my naivety, I went with this Swiss guy. I thought I was going for a little walk, and it said "extreme danger, do not go in." And I said, "Oh, how long will we be?" And he went, "Oh, about 15 minutes." So I was like, "Oh, okay." About 8 hours later, I came out.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah? What were you doing in there?
We waded through rivers. It says don't go in. So we waded into these rivers. I had my rucksack on my head and I was up to my neck wading through water. And it was quite an experience because I had no idea where I was going. I was just up for an adventure. And then it started to rain. We'd gone so far into this forest. We must have been about 2 or 3 hours into this forest, and it started raining then. And then I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna fall here." And then I heard this voice in my head saying, and he offered his hand to help me, to drag me, you know, along. And the voice in my head said, "No, Mama Chia help you. Mama Chia help you." Because I think what he realized was we'd gone too far and it was raining and he didn't know what to do. And he thought, I don't think she's got the strength to make it because it's quite dangerous now because it's like landslides. And this voice went, "No, Mama Chia help you." Because I knew that if I held his hand, his fear would make me worse. So I need to stay in my own energy. And this Mama Chia woman helped me. And every time I pull a piece of grass, which looked like a piece of grass to hold on to, it turned into like a piece of rope. And so I went through this forest. And when you get to the very end of that forest, there's a massive waterfall. And when I look at the pictures back, there's like this apparition of Saint Francis of Assisi in the back of the waterfall.
Wow.
And then when we had to hike back, it was dark when we hiked back. And by then, I'd just totally given up any hope of anything. And the funny thing is, he then went into fear. And once it went pitch black dark, he started stumbling into all kinds of sticks and getting cut on his legs and everything. And I'd just given up. And because I'd given up and totally trusting this Mama Chia voice that was talking to me now, I mean, I only had a bikini on with a throw over it. That was and I just walked. It was like I was just gliding through the forest, and I came out the other side with nothing had touched me.
Wow, amazing. God.
But what I see is that we stumble into these initiations without realizing that that's what we're actually doing. You know, it sometimes naivety is really good, and trust, and just go on an adventure. And then I spoke to some kahunas, and I said, I went to that Valley of the Kings, and they went, oh, where did you go? I went, oh, right to that waterfall. And they went, you went to the waterfall? I said, oh, yeah. I said, it was quite dangerous. And they went, yeah, people have died in there. I said, yeah, but I heard this woman called Mama Chia. And they went, oh, she was an old kahuna who used to live in the forest.
Oh, wow. Amazing, eh?
So they knew her. And I think there's a gorgeous book. Again, another magical story. There's a book called The Secrets and Mysteries of the Big Island, written by a friend of mine, P. Lau. And I loved this book when I was in Hawaii. I eventually got this book, The Ancient Secrets and Mysteries of Hawaii. And I thought, I'd love to meet this man. He just sounds amazing. And then when I was in Sedona one time, he messaged me on Facebook and said, hi, I'm Pilau. I went, oh my God, I love your book. And he was like, would you like to meet? So I met him in Sedona.
Wow.
So, you know, it's amazing how
the connection. Yeah.
Oh, my favourite place is Sedona. My favourite place.
Yeah.
Hey,
have you been many times, Jeff?
Mine's Hawaii.
Oh, Hawaii was lovely, but Sedona's got something magic about it. Hey, I'm going to change the subject because you've sent us the Caduceus, but I was reading your little story behind the scenes there, and you're now walking into the world of Michael Lamb and the Anarchy and Neil and his brother are part of the Anarchy and the Nephilim, and how they went and started changing the DNA. That was really interesting to see this. Well, you can call it Caduceus, but you had another name for it, didn't you?
I don't know what, it's probably from a while ago. I had a run-in with them. Well, I've had a few run-ins with those lot, which is Enki and Enlil, and then the sister was Ninhasag.
She was the genetic scientist, wasn't she? She's the genetic scientist who played around with creating the four major root races: the human ape, and the human dolphin, and the human hawk, and the human what was the other one? Dolphin, hawk, lion. We're going back in millennium. These guys are immortals.
Yeah, well, I had a run-in with Marduk once before I
Marduk.
Yeah, Marduk's the son of. I always confuse it whether it's Enki or Enlil, because one's good, one's bad in the stories. So I was saying to a friend, actually, she used to live in Cornwall. I said, I feel this energy somewhere around me. She went, I think I can see it. I said, I feel I need to get rid of it, you know, like, I don't know what it is. And then she was like, well, you'll have to come and stay with me. And I was like, I don't need to stay with you. I've got my own place. Why am I going to stay with you? And I thought, this is really weird, like this story. So I said, thank you. And then we ended the conversation, and I lay down and I thought, I've got to get rid of this thing myself. So I just lay down, and this this energy came up, and it was really angry. It was like banging, as I relaxed in my body, it was banging its hand down, shouting away. And when you're in your own house, you can let that happen. So it was shouting through me, and it was really angry. And it said, the children of light will not enter the portal of Marduk. This is what it said to me. And I just felt this serenity come over me. And I said, the children of light will enter the portal of Marduk. And I embody myself as a living goddess. And the children of light will enter the portal of Marduk. And with that, it had one big last angry rant and went. And then, but I didn't know who Marduk was. So I had to then look up Marduk. Understand the whole story. But this thing was ancient. It was thousands and thousands of years old that was attached to me. And it just went once, and I've seen it with clients. I've asked them, how long have you been attached to my client? Are you the one in charge, or is there somebody above you? And there's often like a kerfuffle in the background, and then these other beings come forward going, yes, what do you want? And the bizarre thing is that as soon as you call them out, like I say, I don't have any authority to make you go. I'm very clear about that. But basically, what are you doing? My client hasn't given you permission. They go, they have. And so they perceive your naivety and your ignorance as tacit consent. Your fair game. If you don't know how the rules of this world work, then you're just fodder for their agenda. And so then what I do is try and explain to my client what's happening, who this being is. And oh no, I don't want them attached. And I go, oh, do you hear that? They don't want you attached, because that's you asserting your power and authority. And so and often, you'll say to some of them who haven't had a physical body, they're not like people who've had a physical body. They've never had a physical body. And so you say to them, what have you been doing to my client? And then they tell you. And then you ask them, have you been attached to other humans? What have you been doing to these other humans? And then they'll tell you. Because they're fairly honest, bizarrely. They're quite happy to be honest. And then I'll say, well, are you attached to any other humans? They go, thousands or millions of them. I go, well, I don't think you have permission to do that anymore. And you need to remove your consciousness attachment. And they'll happily go and do it. They'll say, okay, we're going now. Then we'll tell the others.
Brilliant. They do a job lot.
Yeah, they do a job lot. And the client often says they see them spiraling out of their body, like they just spiral out. And they're gone. And then they say, oh my God, I feel so much lighter.
Oh, I bet. Definitely.
So I think we don't know the absolute truth yet, do we? I think nobody knows the absolute truth. We've just got, from my perspective, experiences I've had with clients and my own experiences. And then I hear other people telling their story. But I have heard people saying Sitchin isn't correct. That Sitchin wasn't absolutely correct, that he was, part of the agenda as well. And that isn't quite the truth. And so you only need to be a few degrees out with the truth to, so I don't know what the absolute truth is. I think the only thing we absolutely know is that we are capable of way more than we've been allowed ourselves to believe that we are. And that it does seem like we're disseminating this civilization now quite rapidly.
Yes.
Hey, how good's this crown?
That's a lovely crown, isn't it? A crystal crown.
That's beautiful.
I think ultimately we're going to crown ourselves, because that's what it's about. You're crowning yourself as a sovereign being. Nobody can do that for you. So this concept of, kings and queens outside of ourselves is the byproduct of losing consciousness and misunderstanding the truth that we are a sovereign being. So if you're a sovereign being and you're in the highest potential of yourself, then you have the highest potential for humanity. So surely in that way, we should be in a consciousness where we don't need leaders, but because we've fallen in consciousness, we need leaders, but we need leaders who care about humanity, not care about a corporate agenda. And so, you know, at the moment, it isn't leaders who care about humanity. They're pushing a narrative for a corporate agenda, which serves only a ruling elite, which isn't fair. It isn't a just way.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, you saying about the crown, I can hear my mum used to say, "I'll crown you." Now I know what she meant.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Right, Carol's asking a question here. I'd like to know, do entities attach to someone else when the host person dies? How at risk are people around a deathbed from inheriting the entity? That's a valid point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do hoover up entities then, you know, that's the truth.
Get the vacuum out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, it's like your love, the whole thing is that we've misunderstood love as well. Like, I can explain about my uncle dying. So he wasn't really my uncle. He was a family friend that I called uncle. And when he died, he left me some substantial amount of money. And I was so in gratitude. I just really didn't think that he would give me anything, and I was in so much gratitude. I'm like, oh my god, that is so kind, you know, like la 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 la, you know, it's enabled me to buy this chalet. You know? So I was so in gratitude. But then I started to feel like I had symptoms of diabetes, and I thought, oh, I feel like I've got diabetes. I thought, and then it just, my intuition asked, you know, have you attached to me? You know, I spoke to my uncle and he went, oh, hello, yes. And I said, why have you attached to me? He said, oh, well, what you do is so interesting. I thought I'd like to know a bit more about that, you know. And I said, what, but you had diabetes and now I'm manifesting symptoms of diabetes. He went, oh, I'm so sorry about that. And I said, but how did you attach to me? You know, often I ask, how did you attach? And he said, well, you were so grateful for the money. It was easy to get in. Oh. So it was too much gratitude.
Yeah.
He said he'd got in through too much gratitude.
Says a lot for your doorkeeper then, doesn't it?
Yeah. so we can be too grateful. You know, it's a balance. Yeah. Being grateful, but not like, oh, too grateful. You know, too angry, too this, too that, too naive, too, you know, you can have had an operation, you can have had a shock or a trauma and they get in.
Many ways, eh?
But I think as long as, you know, the deathbed is, again, to you know, but I can talk, you know, I was quite emotional when my mum passed away last year through just sheer exhaustion and tiredness and the shock of, you know, I'd helped so many clients and they said, oh, it was such a beautiful death. Thank you for the advice that you gave me. It helped me. But my mum's death was horrific. So it was so shocking to me, you know, and sleep deprivation of looking after someone that, you know, on the deathbed, you could, I mean, my mum had gone probably a week before her physical body shut down. It was quite traumatic. And again, that was probably because her ego didn't want to go, you know, and she had dementia, shows she was very confused and she didn't think it was her time to go, which was difficult as a child when you're having to tell your parent that they are going to have to go, but you've now become the parent and they're the child. And I think dementia is a way of unpacking, because my auntie in the care home now has dementia, and she's 97, but she's got a light now, and my mum had this light as well that she only really acquired in the last sort of 8 years of her life, this real radiance, that she maybe had it when she was younger, and then I think a lot of trauma had happened in her life to her, and she like lost her light, and then the light came back again.
Yeah.
So I know this is one of my favourite places. This is on the Somerset Levels, isn't it?
Do you think it probably is? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I've taken that picture. It might have done.
Yeah, I can tell you it is. There's a little bridge you go across. It's got black railings in that, and you look up that. It's not that particular spot, but it's just a bit further. Over here is a fish ponds from memory. Over here.
Oh, do you know what it is? It is. It's by my house.
I thought it might be.
Have you been there, Jeff? A lot. Have you been there?
Oh yeah.
Did you live in England?
Pardon me?
Did you live in England?
Oh, for 6 weeks at a time for about 12 years.
Wow.
I used to go every year.
But were you born in Australia?
No, born over in New Zealand.
Ah, you're from New Zealand. Yeah, they've got some magical energies there, haven't they?
Haven't they, Jess? I love New Zealand.
Yeah.
I have to say, all the time we've been talking, your aura, the blue in your aura is really beautiful. I've been watching.
Oh, I don't know. Because I hadn't set it up properly. I'm not where it's very light, I think. I think I'm in the dark.
No. It's
normally really bright in here, but today it's not that bright for some reason.
Anyway, go on. Oh, did you want to say anything else?
No, I was just going to put this photo up.
The best thing that came out of dating a psychopathic con man.
No, I saw that.
A nice picture.
And I thought, oh my God, we're having a blonde moment here.
That's pathos. I think that's pathos in Cyprus.
Oh, been there too.
Yes, that was a lesson, dating a psychopathic con man. A young one as well.
And we went to Pathos.
Yeah, my daughter got married there.
Oh, did she? Wow. Yeah. It's lovely there because you've got the Aphrodite energies, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. And then there's Adonis over there at the waterfall.
Yeah. So many magical places, eh?
Yeah. Anyway, so the bottom line is, what question have we asked you that we should be asking you?
I don't know. All questions are relevant, I always think. I don't know. I can't.
Hey, let's take us back till 6. Okay, so it'll be 9:30 your time. Yeah. Let's talk about how we hit the roadblock.
Yeah.
And then I fired up. You retaliated, and then we're then thinking how we're going to run the show, and then 22 minutes later you came on.
Oh, was it 22 minutes? How bizarre is that?
And then, so the thing was, opening statement was how you sat into it and pushed yourself through it. And I think from my perspective, I thought to myself, okay, I probably had some doubts about you. And those doubts removed themselves by you saying, this is what I've done and push through that in terms of relationships. And I thought, okay, now I'm listening. And so I had to go back and change all the coding and all that stuff because I removed it, thinking you're not coming on. So I just was patiently doing all that while you and Andrena carried on. I thought, this is going to be an interesting show. So, but there was a lot of things that you've gone and done, the places that you've gone to that Andrena and I have actually either done it together or done separately, individually. Then you also got one there. Looks like you've been in Spain with the Cathars, isn't it?
France. Oh, I've been in Spain. I've been in Spain and
this one here.
I've been in around Rennes-le-Château, Rennes-le-Ban, Alette-le-Ban, around there. Bucharest. I go there quite a lot, but I've been to Andalusia.
And me.
Right.
Yeah,
I loved it there.
Yeah, yeah, that was magical, Andalusia.
So it's amazing how you can be. Here we are. I'm in Australia. Andrena's in the UK. You're in the UK, and yet until today, for me personally, I've only just met you now. But it's amazing how footsteps that we've actually walked, that we've gone to and seen. It was part of our opening conversation when we were just having our little dialogue between each other, the dreaming the new dream and the passions, and how we walk in somebody else's moccasins and we get an understanding of it. You just gave us that quality time before the show to actually fall into our own heart space to say, okay, we haven't got anything to go with, but let's go this and work intuitively, And
yeah, I don't think it was completely anything to do. I'd been had a go at by a few people yesterday. One of them was, this shows you how you can lose your centre quite quickly. I was in the laundrette down here, and I put a box of washing powder in the curtains to take them to be washed in the laundrette. And I forgot that when you get there, because I travel so much, and like I've traveled so much since last Friday, some of the soap powder had gone on the curtains. It just frittered a bit on the curtains. And I put it in this washing machine. Then I thought, oh, do you know what? I think I'll put it in the other one. And I took them out, but I hadn't actually put soap powder in. It's just there were some little flakes that had fallen out of the box, because these come preloaded with washing powder. And I know the guy in the laundrette, and he's ex-police, so he can be quite... And so he came out and he had a real go at me about these flakes that had fallen on the floor, but there was no brush. I couldn't get them off because they were tiny. And he had a real go at me. And I said, oh, I didn't put washing powder in your washing machine. I said, I know not to do it. You've told me that lots of times over the past. I said, there were just flakes left on the curtain that was in a box that tipped over. So you've got to over communicate your truth. Because he's just carrying on, going on and on about how I'm going to ruin the washing machine. I said, I know that. I said, I didn't put them in there. He said, yeah, but then you tipped it that. I said, no, it fell out of the bag and there was no brush to brush it up. But you just have to remain calm. And then so he had this whole thing. And because he's an ex-policeman, and I could see in his face, I thought, oh, he looks like he's got liver damage, because he had all this liver damage energy. And, he's obviously taken the last 2 years quite hard, I thought. And so I thought, brush that energy off. And then I go outside, and normally he gets upset. He'll let you park there, but he will be aggressive about how you can park. Then my auntie rings me going on about my auntie in the care home that I'd tried to, because I was worried about her well-being and whether she was being treated properly. And this seemed to upset other people, my caring, and they got quite defensive and angry with me about it. And then it was weird, while I was listening to my auntie go to me, trying to almost gaslight me. It was a weird experience, because as I was sat in my car, you know how you've got the wing mirror in your car? Some random pretty girl walked by and she tapped on the window and she said, can I look in your mirror? I said, oh, yeah, you can look in the mirror, whatever. and she's looking in the mirror and I'm talking to my auntie. And then she says to me, does my face look orange? I said, no, it doesn't look orange. Just your makeup looks pretty. You've got lovely eyeshadow on it. And I'm thinking, how random is this? Girl's looking in the mirror of the car while I'm talking to my auntie who's going 1 million miles an hour at me. He's just had to go at me in the laundrette.
Oh my God.
And then I did realise that when I came home, and I think this is for all of us, I was triggered by my auntie. I was pushed out of my centre, and I knew this morning I'd woken up not back in my centre. It triggered like a form of post-traumatic stress in me, from and you're, it's like, oh no, I've fallen for being gaslighted. Oh, again, you know, kind of, and just to come back to your center again. So then, because I'm not familiar with StreamYard and I couldn't find the charger for my computer, yet I thought I came here with one, and I had to paint a decorator yesterday here, so everything's upside down. And then I found the charger, and then I still couldn't get in. Then I thought I'll do it on my new phone, and I still couldn't get in. And it was like blocking me. And then I had to put all the passwords back in again and reload Google Chrome before it would let me. I had to actually change the passwords. So from my perspective, if I had to change the passwords, I had to move on to another frequency. Okay. Do you think that's what it was?
Well, who knows? Because I was thinking, this is not making sense. It's there. Why is she not going in on it? Why is it? Anyway,
yeah,
it's all
and then Jeff said to me, 150 people have done this before you. I was like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't, there's no way. So sometimes you have to then break that energy, and then you can either regroup really quickly and clear everything. Because then what I was thinking in my mind, which is useful for people to realize this, I reflected on the guy shouting at me in the laundrette, my auntie shouting at me, and I was like, I'm not letting these people who've knocked me off my center, you know, stop me from what I'm going to be doing, because otherwise they've won, and that means the darkness and the lower vibration has won, and it's not going to win, because that's not where we're going.
Hey, I have to say, I spent most of the afternoon going through all your bloody website and Facebook, finding all these photos in there. I really loved this. I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I like it as well.
I stopped waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel and lit that bitch up myself. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, and I think in my own personal journey, I think that in general, and I say this in a positive way, in general, nobody has shown up for me. So I have had to show up for myself. And I think what had triggered me yesterday was my auntie, without going into the minutiae detail of what she was saying to me, well, you're a strong person. And I said, yeah, but I've had to be, because nobody showed up for me. So I've had to become a strong person. And I realized that, you know, having watched people commit suicide in this last 2 years that I knew, and it having shocked me, and even before that, a friend's daughter did as well. It's you either get to that point where you either sink or you swim. And if you can swim, it's in those lifetimes or those points in your life where nobody does show up for you, that you have to show up for yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you don't find that strength, you probably will leave, you know. Yeah. So it's that do or die kind of energy. But from my perspective, I see them all as wonderful teachers, even if they're being horrible to you, because in that moment, you get to choose that you can either be a victim and you can stay in that lower frequency, or you can go, you know what, I am a strong person, but not in the way you're saying it to me. You know, like, it's all right for you, you're a strong person. It's like, yeah, but strong people don't just arrive at being a strong person. Yeah. There's a lot of lifetimes and a lot of people throwing rocks at you for you to become that strong person. Because sometimes you listen to people's stories and it's one tiny little thing and they're crucified. They don't rise up again. They're like, that's it, it's over. They can't rise up again. And it's like, when you do rise up, you become a stronger person and then you become a force to be reckoned with, because people don't, in general, with where the consciousness is at right now on the planet, people don't because you'll start triggering people, and they won't like that, because they will project all their shadow at you. But it's not you. They won't even see who you've become if they're not in that frequency.
No.
They only see their own shadow. So you show their own shadow back to them, and they don't like it because it's really painful and uncomfortable. And you're only trying to ask, what would you do if you lived in love and cared about humanity? What would you do? You wouldn't tolerate some of these things you're tolerating. You wouldn't. Right. You would speak your truth. You would call out these injustices. So when you come along going, actually, I don't think that's okay. I think that's not appropriate. I think we need to ask questions. We need to. They don't like it.
No, of course not. Of course not.
You know, there's no karma, no drama. That's what I say. No karma, no drama. Because otherwise, you're that pinball in a pinball machine, and the pinball is just bouncing around, and you're just going from one drama to another drama instead of rising beyond it and being self-navigating instead of being pushed by other people.
Brilliant. Right. Well, that's it. We've gone way over time, but it's been
it's been fun. Say more about Jeff and Andrena. Although I know quite a bit about Andrena, but yeah.
That'll have to be another day.
Do you talk about yourself and what you do sometimes? Have you interviewed Jeff?
No. he never stopped talking.
Come on, get off.
He's been quietish for 2 hours.
I know, it makes a change.
No.
He's been very quiet.
I'm very patient. But then if we had your sister on here, she talks for England and the United Nations.
Well, so you've got a lot in common, you two. Plenty to share.
I had a look at, Andrena was telling me you're in Poole right now, so I was looking at the energies of Poole, and it felt really nice energies in Poole when I looked it up the other day.
Yeah, I love it down there.
Yeah,
and I'm by the well, I'm about 4 miles out. I'm in Corfmullen. So I'm currently on a farm, so it's lovely because I got horses and goats and chickens and a couple of dogs and sheep, and they're all old. I think she's got 13 of them, and that she just loves them. And I watch them, and they all come limping back. It's lovely to watch, and I think, sending them lots of healing, like they're because they're just old, but they still can eat and walk and be happy, but just watching them all limping in and out. Yeah, so there we go. Anyway, right. I'd like to say thank you so much for making it eventually.
Pushing through. I like that Jeff said it was 22 minutes, because that is, I love 22 and it's a master number. And
yeah, definitely. So anyway, it's been a privilege and a pleasure.
So thank you, Jeff and Andrena. That was lovely.
Yeah,
that's what the show's all about, isn't it? Sharing your passion.
Yeah.
Dream the new dream.
From Cornwall. Yeah, and the Cities of Light in Cornwall here, which is Hale Beach here, which is where I think the Cities of Light are. And when there was a Venus-Jupiter alignment once, that picture might be somewhere, but I quickly took a picture of myself, but it didn't just take one, it took a few. And when I saw one of the images, within those few seconds, I wasn't human.
Really?
I looked like a bog-eyed creature, but I'm sure they're quite nice beings, but it was not human. And so that's here, the Cities of Light here.
I haven't been in Cornwall in years, but
well, you go down to St. Nectan's Glen, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
St. Nectan's Glen, Madron. We're near Madron. Yeah. But apparently St. Nectan's Glen's become quite commercialised now, someone said.
Not surprised.
You won't know until you get there. But I like the Mintark Theatre, and I like the story of the Pisces or the Pisces, and how at harvest time they used to turn up at different farms and get onto their scrumpy. And at one stage there was this guy in the cellar there, and he was drinking with them, and they taught them how to sing a song, and then they would teleport to the next cellar and get on the drink. So they spent the whole night doing this, and anyway, this human forgot the song, and he fell asleep in the cellar. Anyway, he gets arrested, and he goes to the court, and he's prisoner so-and-so, and he's there, and he's telling about these people he's having a drink with, and the guy who owns the farm says, "No, there's only you, mate. You know, you're just away with the fairies, you know." Anyway, this old lady turns up in the court and goes, pushes her way up, and she said, "Hey, you remember that song we were singing last night?" So she starts the song, and he starts remembering. So he starts singing the song, and next second, the two of them disappear. So apparently, it's in your local court records there.
Really?
Yeah, really interesting story.
Another dimension.
Yeah.
It's on that road, runs along the Atlantic coast. There's a pub there all by itself before you get up to St. Ives. Yeah.
Oh, which pub? Because there's a really famous one, but that's further down, and I forget what that's called because I don't go to them. But
and
it's
close to where Stan and Elaine got married, love, Andrena. Yeah, in that area. Anyway, there's a little side story. All right, well, we'll chuff off and stay on. We'll just finish the broadcast, and you can stay in the green room. Okay. All right, folks, you're listening to Radio FM 88 Australia. It's coming up for 5 to 9, which will be 5 to 12 for our friends in the UK who are on the show. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for listening, and we'll see your comments, and you can catch up on the Radio FM 88 Australia site. You can catch up on Andrea Forrest. Go onto the YouTube channels of Andrea Forrest or Radio FM 88 Australia. It's been our pleasure to have Andrena and Andrea on the show tonight. Next Thursday is we're having an RDO, known as a roster day off, because it's going to be Thursday night, and next day is Easter Friday, so we're having the Thursday night off. It'll be coming back the next week, and it's Mr. Michael Lamb himself, our esoterical wizard that every female on this planet wants to watch and take home.
And take him to dinner.
Hang on, we got a comment there. Who's saying that? All right, Jennifer, here we go. Just saying thank you very much. She must be a mate of yours. All right, well, thank you, and good evening, good night, good morning. Okay.